Hey guys, this is Aaron. Welcome to Goodness Chick live at 5. Hope you're having an awesome week so far. Today's topic that we're going to be jumping into is the aspect of addiction. And not just addiction, but the stigma that unfortunately too often is associated with addiction. And if we're real honest with ourselves, we're at a point and within our society that the majority, not the minority, know somebody, whether it's a family member, an extended family member, somebody close to them, acquaintance, somebody that they work with, that suffers from addiction. And that goes outside of just, it's not merely drugs and alcohol, but that includes gambling, it includes sex, it includes pornography, and a gazillion other things that is controlling their life. And a big part in my feeling and my outlook of this is of treatment and the long-term process of addiction. So much of that is connected to how we as a society, us within our family, within the school system, how we deal with addiction. And it kind of, if it becomes, and sometimes is perceived as kind of like a dirty word, something to be ashamed of, when we're built on that foundation, it inevitably creates issues. So that's kind of what I want to jump into a little bit today. How we address addiction. So to get into the reality, if your young person or somebody that you care about is heading into the wrong direction, there's something your gut feeling telling you, something's off. If they feel like, that this is a topic that is off limits, if this is a topic that I can't go to my parent and chat with, or somebody within my family, and this is not merely limited to kids, it's also to our spouses, it's aunts, uncles, whoever within the family dynamics, and again, as a society and community, if there's a sense of negativity attached to it, that this person that's suffering from an addiction is either considered kind of like the black sheep of the family, or something like an outcast, which is an inaccurate thing. But if they feel that way, there's a reluctance in getting help. There's a hesitation in seeking treatment, and that in itself, that hesitation, will over the long run create a further obstacle in getting help. And when we take a step back and say, what the prevalence of addiction that's kicking our butts in society, and we keep our eyes closed and we keep our ears out of tune, we're heading in the wrong direction. And we're looking for an inevitable heightened sense of hurt, sadness, and it's something that we need to talk about. So where do we go from here? So I'm going to kind of break it down into three different things. How do I make this kind of something, the topic of addiction, something that's easier to discuss and communicate, not only with my kids, but my spouse, my relatives, whatever this is, that whatever it looks like for you. The first is defining what is addiction. What does it look like? How can it, in any sense of the word, impact not just the individual, but the whole family unit? And what it needs to not become is something that's dirty, something that's wrong, something that's sketchy, okay? It cannot be that. It has to be something, let's talk about it, let's define it, and the reality is, to some degree, all of us are vulnerable to it. And that leads us to humanizing it, okay? We've not only defined it, now we're humanizing it. Well, what does that mean? Humanizing means it's not making it that, that these preconceived notions of that dude under the bridge who's living in a soggy cardboard box. It's in our homes. It's an individual that we're passing, in the hallway at work. It is human, and they're hurting, and until we're able to bridge that gap of making it human, okay, we're kind of putting ourselves, we're hurting ourselves and we're hurting our loved ones, and it's a disservice to the whole concept of what addiction is and who that individual is. All right, so we've defined, we've humanized, and now the big sucker is genetics, okay? If explaining both the mom, the person we're chatting about, both the biological father side, so many people don't put this concept together that if mom and dad's side, if there's a history of addiction, okay, that is running through your family, you are at a higher likelihood of developing an addiction, okay? And sometimes we very much limit ourselves to saying, well, that's drugs and alcohol. Well, that connects to having an addictive personality, okay? That can be an addiction to really so many different things. And we can shift addictions throughout our course of life. It's not necessarily have to be limited to one thing in particular. And until we know that in my genetics, my DNA, there is a greater likelihood of developing an addiction, that to me, that's withholding pertinent information to whoever that person is. Let's talk about it. Okay, is there somebody in the family that we're again not treating like the black sheep of the family, but is facing this and is struggling this, whether they've received treatment or not? Let's talk about it. And knowing, whether it's an uncle, a parent, a grandparent, you now have the decisions whether you choose to get into A, B, C, or D. And knowing that if you choose to do that, there's a higher risk for you becoming an addict. And so when we dialogue, when we communicate, holy cow, it makes things in terms of first defining what addiction really is. Does it run through my family? And if I'm at risk and I'm making decisions that I shouldn't be making and leading down a path that I shouldn't be going, I now have the ability and the comfort level to seek support, or somebody that I care about to take them by the hand and lead them in the direction that they need to go. Because really, this is not just an individual effort. It's not just a family effort. It's a community effort. And I encourage you to check out goodnesschick.com tomorrow, where I'm going to be hitting on in a little bit more detail the negative stigma that's connected to addiction. And I encourage you, if you have questions, shoot me an email, aaron@goodnesschick.com. Do not go at this alone, but dialogue with the people you love. I wish you an awesome week. Peace, love, and goodness.